Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for an update video. So, as you know, I am reading the Odyssey by Homer. I watched the movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great adaptation. You know, it wasn't a perfect adaptation. You know, and I think the people that are most critical of the movie are probably the classicists who study this and other mythology, and the ancient classics are a little more critical, but I'm just, not like a hardcore, because the last I read this years ago, so I barely remember it. And it's funny, what I remembered only takes up a small portion of the story. But it does, Nolan's movie does focus on those things because those are the most memorable, those are the things that the average reader would know about the story. And I think it's also a good way to, if you want to try the story out for the first time, to watch the movie first so you get a basic idea of the story. Now this is the Fagles translation, which so far I don't find it that hard to read, but a lot of people, I feel like I just recommended to someone yesterday who was asking, was really this older woman who was very excited that I'm reading this, being such a young person. She, like, her husband was surprised that people, doesn't think that people are reading this book anymore because it's 1,000 years old. But, obviously people are. And so, and I did tell her, if you're interested in reading it, then check out the Emily Wilson translation. I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people will say, and I'm sure a lot of people will comment. I mean, people might comment on my video and say, it's just whatever translation you feel comfortable with, and just try a different translation. But this was kind of a spur of the moment, like, they were getting ready to leave, so I quickly wanted to recommend something. So I told her, check out the Emily Wilson translation, because it kind of modernizes things a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to read. So that's what I was thinking along the lines of. And I didn't have time to be like, it doesn't, with translation, you just pick the one that fits you best, and blah, blah, blah. So maybe me saying the Emily Wilson translation was probably not good advice. I'm not an expert, because and I have heard, even at the bookstore when I was trying to decide, because I was looking for the Emily Wilson one, and they didn't have it. They had this Fagles translation, and I was like, you know what? I heard this one was good. This translation was good. So I bought it, and then I ordered, Fagles' translations for the Iliad and the Aeneid to match, to go with them. And yeah, I might try the Emily Wilson translation at some point. But I'm just going to stick with this one, and for now. And like I said, I told her, because of what I've heard about the Emily Wilson translation, to check that one out first. So that's what I was thinking along the lines of. Not being like, well, it's whatever translation works for you, blah, blah, blah. Because I didn't have time to go into that. She was going to leave soon, so. Anyway. Which at the same time, it's annoying when people, like, interrupt my reading. So I was, like, I was being polite about it, and I still will manage to get excited when someone, wants to talk about books. But anyway, so I'm at the point in this book where Telemachus has been encouraged by Athena, who is disguised as this guy Mentor, he's going on his journey to become a man, as Athena's hoping he will be, to find out about what happened with his father. Is his father still alive? He went to see Nestor, who's the only one who has had a really good homecoming, and he and Nestor's son go to see the king of Sparta, who's Menelaus, and his wife Helen. And he tells him about his father, Odysseus, and how great he was. And at first he doesn't recognize Telemachus, because of course Telemachus was a baby when his father left. And he doesn't know. And of course, these people can't just visit each other. They can't Zoom call each other, so they don't know what each other's children look like and all that. And he does eventually they do recognize him. I think maybe Helen was the one who recognized him at first. And they're like, oh yeah, I can tell by your eyes and all that. And especially because he reacts to Menelaus telling him how awesome Odysseus was. And that's where I am. So the first, in case you have not read this, the first handful of books were with Telemachus. We're not with Odysseus yet. We have not. We just hear about him and his adventures and some of the great things he's done. Like, he was the one who came up with the Trojan horse and the wooden horse, I should say, because they didn't call the Trojan horse at the time. He's all clever and wily and just comes up with all these great ideas, and he's a bit of a trickster. So we get an idea of who Odysseus is. We have not met him yet. So I forgot about Telemachus's book and all that. I only remembered the witch, Circe, and turning his men to pigs, and then the Cyclops. And I always thought it was really hilarious when just as they're leaving. Like, at first, Odysseus is smart and tells the giant, "I'm no one," when he introduces himself. But then as they're leaving, he can't help but taunt the Cyclops, and he's like, "I'm Odysseus, you have been defeated by Odysseus, the trickster," blah, 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 and all these different epithets of his identity. And then, of course, the Cyclops prays to his daddy, who is Poseidon, and that causes problems, and he is the god of the ocean, so that bites Odysseus and his men in the ass. And I thought that was hilarious, because it was like, dude, you dumbass, why did you do that? Like, it was so funny that that I always thought that was so hilarious. But those are the parts I remember. So I don't remember everything else. I mean, I knew that Telemachus goes on a journey. I mean, I think I mentioned it in my review that, and I'm probably going to rewrite my review of that one, because I will have some different things to say. Unlike, when I reread last year Mansfield Park, and I don't know if I'm going to rewrite my review, because my thoughts haven't changed that much on that one. I still really enjoyed it. I'm probably one of the minority here, and actually enjoy Mansfield Park as a story. But anyway, so I haven't got very far, and I've been reading at the pool, which we haven't been to the pool a lot this summer. I've barely been to the pool. It's like it's bad timing, or it's that time of the month as a woman. And so I haven't got a chance to. And then, of course, so I was trying to squeeze I squeezed in a visit yesterday. I went to the pool yesterday afternoon, even though that's, in my opinion, the worst time to go, because it's so hot and everybody's there. So, I prefer going, like, in the evening, going into the evening, or in the early morning. That's the best time to go. Like, afternoon, not a good time to go. But so I tried to read it, and then I was kind of tired, so, like, there were times when I wasn't taking it all in. But, so I think it did really help. It does really help having seen the movie and hearing other people talk about the story. So even if I don't get everything and understand every word that's said in the poem, I knew enough that I'm not completely confused and lost. I know what's going on. And like I said, reading a prose version is really great too, I think. I should have said that to the lady as well, that reading a prose version, so it's written like a regular modern book and not some epic poem, could potentially probably help as well. But anyway, so that's where I am with the Odyssey. I'm probably going to read a little bit later today. I mean, I meant to read this morning, but then I got sidetracked because the Librarians, the second season, they were playing episode this morning on TNT, so I was like, I want to watch that. And so I spent time with watching those first while I was eating breakfast, and then my dad went to watch something else, so I had to come up here and put it on up here so I could watch the rest. But anyway, so I didn't get to it, but I'm going to read it today, and I might have to stay in my room because it's hot outside, because it's summertime. But anyway, so that's where I am in the Odyssey. So I also had read The Leopard, and I'm going to listen to a podcast on The Leopard by Giuseppe di Lampedusa. This was the author's only book, because he died, and before he could see this book be successful, this was the only book he wrote. And this is set in the 1860s and this is an Italian prince. So right before the revolution in Italy and the peasants taken over, the peasants revolt, and yeah. So this is this Italian prince known as the Leopard, and he is trying to. He doesn't really. He's kind of disappointed by his own heir, his son. He's not as impressive to him, and but he's very close with his nephew, who's very charming and charismatic. Everyone loves him. He's a bit of a ladies' man, and so the prince is trying to arrange him to marry this girl, and they are able to arrange the marriage. And they fall in love and everything, the two young people, but his other, his nephew had a past girlfriend, lover, who was very jealous. But she's with the prince's nephew's friend. She's currently courting him. And of course, the nephew's friend is just not seen as good enough for her. He's, he realizes that she will never consider him good enough for her, basically. And meanwhile, the threat of the peasants' revolt in the revolutionary people wanting to get revenge on the aristocracy and escape the rule of the aristocracy, they're kind of pissed off, and they want to get rid of the aristocracy, and the prince is just kind of ignoring it, dismissing it. He thinks, oh, it's gonna be fine. Meanwhile, there's this priest that's kind of caught between. The prince is priest, but he also is part of the peasant community, and both sides. He tries to talk to both people from both sides, the prince and this local farmer at one point, and neither one of them listens to the other side, so he's kind of caught in the middle. And this is just... So, again, it's more of a character story. And it's the shadow of this revolt, this revolution, is hanging on waiting in the wings for the prince to let his guard down so they can revolt. And they're, the peasants are hoping that the prince will finally see, and that's not going to happen. And it's basically about that. And those last days, the aristocracy and the drama that unfolds, and it kind of makes me think a little bit of that part of the book. Makes me think of like books like War and Peace, the beginning of that book, or like Anna Karenina, and interacting with these people and them just living out their lives of materialism, and not realize that there are groups of people, peasants, who are frustrated and don't understand the unfairness of things, and why these rich people are so oblivious to them and their needs, and just don't care, and just hanging there, it's the same, in the Philippines, this happened, with the Spanish and the natives of the Philippine Islands, so I got a little bit of that in Touch Me Not as well, that whole idea of like the natives fighting back, preparing to fight back, and the aristocracy being completely oblivious. In this case, it was the Spanish. So there's a little bit of that reference in here, because Spain and Italy kind of connected, and it's beautifully written, and just... It might take me a little too long, but let me see if I can find one. The famous Carnival of Venice, they rhymed their kisses with these notes of disillusioned gaiety, and when their embrace loosened, they were surprised to notice that the notes had ceased for some time, and that their action had left no other trace than a memory of ghostly music. And it's just, it was so beautifully written. It was such, really, such a great story. I think also the Count of Monte Cristo was set during this time, but in France. I think that's the time period that the Count of Monte Cristo. I love reading about this time period in Europe. And it is a show on Netflix, apparently. I have not watched it yet. I should see if I can find it and if it's still on there. I would love to watch it. But, anyway. So, if you're interested in this time in history, you know, this is a classic worth checking out, I think. So, that is The Leopard. So I'm not doing a whole review on this one because, like, as you can tell, I don't have a lot to say about it, even though I really enjoyed it. And then I also read Euphoria, my second Lily King book. She's one of the authors I'm hoping to meet at the literary festival I'm hoping to go to, and sometime this year. So I've been slowly reading her books along with Barbara Kingsolver's books. And this one is set in the is based on actual history. This is set in the 1930s. Yeah, 1930s. And it's about anthropologists. And what I really like is we do have the love triangle, but there's also, it's nicely balanced between the love triangle and the story of these people, this group of these anthropologists. And we get their backstory and their studying of this culture, this native culture, trying to understand it. And there's a bit of a gender discussion in this because you have these two people who are this husband and wife team who really are passionate about this culture, want to understand it. Like, the husband wants to be part of it. He wants to immerse himself in this culture and escape into this culture and be like these people, probably because he wants to escape the real world and the modern world, his world, and the responsibilities of, you know, of England or America. I was very confused if they were English or American, but and that those responsibilities of being a husband, and you find out that this couple, they can't conceive, they've been really struggling with that, in infertility. And meanwhile, the wife, she doesn't want to immerse in the culture, but she wants to understand the culture and really genuinely help them out. She doesn't want to just be part of them. She just wants to help them out and take care of what their needs and understand them better and be their friend, but not necessarily be part of them, not be like them, like her husband does. And there's this whole issue of she wants to learn, she can be with the women and get to know them, but she can't get to know the men because they won't let her get to know them, to be part of them, because of, you know, their culture being gender oriented. And the husband, you know, he can bond with the men, but she can't. So he has to be the one to bond with the chief, and get to know him. But he won't tell his wife things, and tells, you know, and it's kind of a battle because, you know, he's not, first of all, he's already jealous of her and her success. She's written books, so she's already very famous, and he's a little resentful of that. And he won't tell her things about the men of the culture. And she's very frustrated. And he's like, well, you know, you don't deserve to know. I can understand them. And then there's, of course, the whole issue of the love triangle. Like, he can sense that their friend, this Bankson guy who shows up, who is also an anthropologist studying these cultures, and they're kind of both in love with Bankson. They both are interested in him, and he's coming between them because he likes the wife, Nell's her name. He is really into her, and it's just, he doesn't, you know, and so it puts a wedge between the three of them. And so it's there is the love triangle, but there's also the relationship between the husband and the wife, and then them studying this culture. So I really enjoyed reading this, and it is based on an actual, like, event in history where there were I think these anthropologists were real people, and this love triangle really did happen. But and maybe not exactly how it was, but in real life. But I enjoyed this. I had a good time with it, and I cannot wait to read another Kelly Link book. I'm hoping to go soon. So I also, along with along with the Odyssey. Yesterday I brought with me to the pool 266 by Bolaño. I absolutely loved The Savage Detective, so I wanted to read this one as well. And I did read a little bit of it. And the first part is you have these three people. Each of them was obsessed with one particular writer, this particular author, and it's all about how each of them became obsessed with him and wanted to know more about the author, wanted to understand him and research him. And that's, so like I said, I didn't get very far. I mean, I spent most of my time at the pool, other than swimming, reading the Odyssey. So, and then I stopped and started to read a little bit of this, but I didn't get very far. I'm also hoping to pick up, this is my next Barbara Kingsolver read, Animal Dreams. And I haven't picked it up yet. I'm going to pick it up at some point today. I'm going to start reading it today. And I am still participating in the Goodreads challenge. Not just the number of books challenge, but the one where there are certain books that you can get a special little bookmark sticker thing. And I just think like I said, as I've said before, I think it's kind of fun to do it, you know? I know that it's not like you can pick just any book. It has to be a book that is, that is connected to, like, the popular books that are on Amazon. Because we already know that Amazon and Goodreads have a relationship, that they're partners. And I get that. If you don't like Amazon and you want to be able to read what you want to read, and it's not like I'm getting anything, I'm just getting a little colored in bookmark stamp thingy. But it's fun to see which ones, if I'm interested in them. I'm not going to read any of the ones I'm not. If there's nothing in that category that I'm interested in, then I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read anything from it. But some of these that's why I do look for some of these categories, ones I'm interested in. And the Correspondent was on a few of them. There's R. Kwong's book, The Cat of Assis. And there's a couple like Dark Matter and Red Rising, the first book, is also on one of those. And there's a couple others on there that I'm kind of somewhat interested in, like the Strangers is a memoir of a couple that gets divorced and the wife is completely caught off guard by it. I consider reading that as well. I'm also trying to, remember to go through my books that I've purchased at BJ's as well. And The Correspondent was one of them. As well as Dark Matter is another one. And there's a few other books. I'm trying to get through read those books as well. So as far as, like I said, I finally got to the librarians. I am very excited that the book, The Correspondent, reminded me how I was really into the idea of going old-fashioned and writing letters to people, handwriting letters to people. So I started doing that again. I've been doing it kind of on and off because it's hard to, because it does take time and it can cause a cramp in your hand while you're writing if you write so much. And then on top of that, like, it takes a long time because you got to really think about what you want to say, and then you got to address it and stamp it, and that could cost a little bit of money. And also, it's hard to, because so many people, like my main core group of friends, and then my sister, and, like, there are people I see on a regular basis, and if I don't see them in person, I can talk to them on the phone, or message them on, like, text message, or email, or something. Like, that's the problem. That's why people don't handwrite letters anymore, because what's the point? When you can just communicate with someone via your phone, like either calling them or texting them, or or you can see them on social media. Like, you're not going to see them in person, but you can you'll still be interacting with them in the moment. So it's just really hard because, again, you're thinking, why? I'm just going to talk to them online, or I'll probably see them in a few, I can call them or something. So but I do want to continue to put in the effort to write letters to people, handwrite letters to people, because not just thank you notes, because I write thank you notes to, if I receive a gift from someone. I still believe the idea of writing, I still, it's been instilled in me since I was a child to write a thank you note to someone. Which is funny, because I don't know about my cousins on my mom's side of the family, but I know my cousins on my dad's family don't do that. But I was always told to do that by my mom. So now I always make sure that I write thank you notes. I mean, there was a time when I didn't I still don't love doing it, because then, I don't have a big space to really write, and, it's hard to think of what to say other than thank you for the gift, and, I hope you're doing well and had a good, So it's can be, and then I'm prone to make mistakes, that's why I'm a good proponent of erasable pens, because I can't write. I'm not gonna write in pencil. Like, if I was a kid, actual kid, then yeah, I would write, and I could get away with writing pencil. But as an adult, if you're not gonna write in pencil, you're gonna write in pen. I'm also on still kind of on the nostalgia train. I recently watched Phantom of the Opera, the movie, and I have a theory about. I think, first of all, it's Gerard Butler's playing the Phantom. So if it's a good look, and that's the problem with Hollywood, is that even if the character's supposed to be a monster, sometimes people are kind of still, drawn to them because they look good. They're attractive. And even though, yes, what they're doing, the Phantom was murdering people, so he's a psychopath, but part of you feels sorry for him. And when you're young, a naive teenager, you're thinking, oh, why didn't Christine go with this dark, mysterious Phantom, even though he's a murderer? He's attractive, and he's being played by Gerard Butler in the movie. Now, I don't know if Michael Crawford was attractive. That's one of the first actors who performed it on stage. But it's also told in a format of gothic romance. Which that was, and I was thinking about that because, someone posted on one of those book related channels on, let's say, for sake of argument, channel on Instagram, and they were listing books that they're tired of people romanticizing, and that book was on there. That our Phantom of the Opera was on there, or stories, because it was a book first, before it became the famous Broadway opera show. But it is portrayed as a gothic romance, which that trend was very popular. I mean, Wuthering Heights is considered a gothic romance, and romance doesn't always mean equal happy ending stories. Sometimes gothic stories aren't meant to be happy all the time, aren't going to always be happy stories. It doesn't take away from the romance. Romanticism. And I think in modern times that gets very confusing and muddled, especially if you like the romance genre, and then people get annoyed if you romanticize that in the way modern people do. And so I was thinking about that, and how gothic literature romanticizes what we consider toxic relationship nowadays. I mean, there's this whole big to-do about the latest adaptation of Wuthering Heights. People there, you had fans very divided on it. And, if you don't, and it's one of these where you can't, you gotta separate it from the book. You gotta see it as two different things. It happens to be a movie version based on the book, but it's still a different thing. But yeah, so I was thinking about a lot of that with the Phantom of the Opera. And it's more than just the romance. It's also beautiful operatic songs. The music is beautiful, and the way it's shot, in the movie version, in the sets of the opera house, and just the beauty of that, the romanticism of the opera house itself, is what is beautiful about the story. And the music, and just Christine's journey as a woman, and how she feels pity. She's not in love with the Phantom. She feels sorry for him. I mean, she was put under a spell briefly, but then she realizes that she has a more healthier relationship with Raoul, even though he's an ass in the book. He's not like, I am aware of that. I remember he was an ass in the book. In the movie, in the opera / movie, they make him likable and kind of charming. And you can see the difference in both their songs that they sing to and with Christine. In his case, it's a love duet while the opera is singing to her, which is another symbolism for the differences between the two men and how they love Christine. If you could call it what the fandom feels for her is love, and it's really not, it's obsession. And it's just, it's a very, it will be interesting I would love to write a paper on it, but I'm not a student anymore, so if I'm not, having to do this for a grade, then I'm, I'll think about the idea, I'll like the idea, but then I won't put in the effort to commit the idea to an action. Because unless I'm motivated to actually do it, like commit to and, do it for a reason. Like, that's why when I decided I was going to write a letter to Terry, I texted her and let her know what was happening, so I figured that would motivate me to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to take the time to write this letter to Terry and, mail it to her, because if I tell her, then she'll be expecting it. So it'll remind me, I promised her I would do this, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. So if I had a reason to write this paper for someone, then I would commit. Now, I also actually did start the letter and started writing it when I told her about it. So that was another thing, and, once I got into it. Which, yeah, maybe I should do that. Like, I could also write I would love to, write my thoughts on Rumpelstiltskin, too, on the Once Upon a Time version. The problem is I have to recall details from the show, and I'm not going to watch season 1 again, because it's just really hard to, I could. I just won't watch, I can't go beyond season 1, because I'm still very sensitive about that show. That's another one I thought about writing a somewhat amateur essay to talk about. The character of Rumpelstiltskin. But anyway, so, I did start watching that. I did go through another watch of, Back to the Future again, and I've still been watching these reaction videos talking about the movies like this. But anyway. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop updating you guys because and I hope that you are enjoying whatever you're reading right now. Have you gone into I'm going to ask again, I think I've asked already in previous videos last week, have you guys gone to the Odyssey yet? Have you been inspired to pick it up? Have you seen the movie? Or do you just not care about the Odyssey? Oh, one other book. Before I go, I also did listen to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe on audiobook via Libby, the Libby app. I just felt like motivated to pick it up. I watched the movie. I have the movie. I'm curious about the Greta Gerwig adaptation. But yeah, I haven't, I decided to let's do it. It's mostly mostly an accurate adaptation. The first movie is pretty good. It was mostly little things that were different. A bunch of little things throughout. And I was just reminded of why I can't get into children's stories. Like, I try to get into that mindset and get into them because I do believe as an adult, just as much as with YA, I think you'd still read children's stories even as an adult, enjoy them and appreciate them. But then my adult brain gets in the way. And it's like, and not that, because I love fantasy. I can get into fantasy and nonsense, and magical stuff that doesn't happen in the real world. But there are things like the characters, like, they're in the middle of a war and they're playing games. Like, not, and even though, yes, they're happy, they're celebrating, Aslan has risen again, is all I'm going to say. And, there are times when they're playing and getting all excited, and then I'm just thinking, guys, you have a war to get to. You gotta go to the battlefield. Peter and Edmund are in danger. But yeah, there's times when the characters are, wasting their time, what I consider wasting time, celebrate, being playful and celebrating things, and like, you don't have time for this. So yeah, sometimes I get impatient with kid stories. I mean, I don't mind movies that are based on movies that are kid story, but even then I'll roll my eyes at stuff a lot of times, but I will still get emotional. And like, again, maybe because it's in a movie or a TV show, it makes it a little bit easier to get into, but anyway. So yeah, that was the other thing that's the other book I just finished. So anyway, now I'm gonna go for real this time. As always, I hope you are enjoying whatever you're reading, and I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye.